Chris Candido. No gimmicks needed.
Hello everybody, it's James once again with WSI, and for my guest this week we have got a repeat customer. He kept his receipt and he's turning back up. The reason why we're having a double one is because I was so sorry about not having his book at the time to refer to, because Amazon had obviously delivered it a week late. So we're having Jonny back on. It's Jonny Candido to talk about the book, talk about Chris Candido and everything ECW, everything wrestling, and everything in between. But firstly, I've got to ask you, Jonny, Vegas, how was it?
Oh, dude, Vegas was so much fun. I had a blast. Initially, I was me and Sabu were going to try to link up, and he was coming to Jersey for that weekend. And so, long story short, we ended up passing each other in the airport. You know, we didn't see each other, but he's texting me. He's like, "Oh, I'm leaving now." I'm like, "Dude, I'm just getting into town." But dude, it was a blast. Yeah, I went out there, met a couple friends, and did some gambling. You know, did some clubbing, all that shit. It was fun. Not really clubbing. Went to bars and
did a Vegas own you? Did Vegas own you in the end?
I'm sorry. What was that last one?
Did Vegas own you in the end?
You know what? I go there a lot, so I'm kind of used to chilling out. The first couple times when I was in my younger 20s, I let it get the best of me. But now I know to kind of back off and try to quit while I'm ahead. So
yeah. And
what was crazy too, I freaking on my way out of there, I'm not a slot machine player. I play blackjack, but there was a freaking penny slot thing. I put a 20 in. I freaking hit bet max, and I won like $800. I don't even know what the hell I hit. I was like, holy crap. That's, that was pretty dope, for real.
I was thinking when you told me you were going Vegas with Sabu, you were actually going, doing like some match or some convention or something like that. So my actual question was going to lead into Sabu. And I didn't realize that your brother Chris, that for people who are watching, you're going to refer to as Cook because you always call him Cook.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that Chris and Sabu had met so early on, in Memphis, I think it was, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was a really long time ago. I remember the first show I ever went to, with when I met Sabu, I was probably like 9, something like that. Well, I'm trying to think because it was right when he got back from Japan, and he had all those razor marks, on his they were like new. And I was like, "Hey, mister, what happened to you?" He's like, "I fell." I'm like, "Oh man." And I think that the on top that night was Eddie Gilbert and Terry Funk. And I just remember it being like a really awesome. I remember that match. I'm trying to think of my first wrestling show and the first time I met, Sabu. So I think it was that time. But yeah, like my brother had known him, forever. So yeah, definitely pre-Memphis.
Was this pre-proper gear and he was still wearing the maternity pants at this time?
He was wearing like green, like parachute pants. I'm not sure if those are the ones that he duct taped up or whatever, but he was just like these green parachute pants, and I think he had like curly boots, or I could be mixing it up, but yeah, definitely had those green pants for a while.
Well, I suppose if this was like around 92 way and MC Hammer parachute pants, they must have been selling them still at that point. So he had his pick of colors, maybe.
Yeah, and all the wrestlers kind of wore the same kind of thing, like the Atomics. They were like, I forget what they were even. There was like a name for them. They were like
Zubaz.
Like Zubaz. My brother wore the hell out of those. I probably still have some in his old bedroom, laying around. So, but he carried them into the 2000s. He loved those things. But yeah, those were cool in the 90s.
Before I ask you sort of like your latest projects and everything like that, I don't know if you're admitting like what you're doing or keeping it on the down low, what you're up to, but I'll ask you a couple more Sabu questions. And I suppose it's more general, just like more Sabu stories, because he's just a quiet dude for the most part, but seems to get to a lot of fun.
And what's funny about Sabu is he's like, if you people he doesn't know, he's just like, "Hey, how you doing?" But when you're friends with him, we'll sit at a bar, have drinks, laugh, tell stories. Like, there's a bunch of pictures on my, on my Twitter of like, he'll come down and we'll just like, he's like, "Let's go to your brother's bench." We'll go down to my brother's bench. I have like the key to everything in the town. So there's like this big pavilion that overlooks the beach, the ocean that's locked. So I unlocked it. I brought Super Genie was with him last time. Brought him and Melissa up there to like see the whole town from the top, and then we went to Marucci Park where my brother first had his matches. Then we went out for drinks. So he's a real cool dude. When he's him personally, Terry Brunk, you know what I mean? When he's himself, he's not that he's not cool when he's Sabu, but he's just more talkative and chatty, and not like his public appearance.
Yeah.
But he's a great friend. I love the guy to death.
You'll be able to tell me this then. Was this still in the era? You said with the scars and everything. Was this still in the era where like scars are badges of honor, especially in Japan, and that's why he went extra deep across his chest and all that?
The reason for his scars were, what I was told was, he went. He was going to have his match with whoever, and he didn't have like a proper blade, so he took a shaving razor and he like cut it up and put some tape on it and used that, and he would like go to get color and be like, shit, because when you cut yourself shaving, you don't really see it right away. So he was like gigging himself, and he wasn't seeing anything happening until all of a sudden it went like and started gushing like all over the place. I remember them, stories of them like having to like hold his stomach shut and freaking crazy glue it to try to like keep it from like because he just like took it and was like, God damn it, and was like trying to get color. But with that little tiny blade, he kept doing it, and all of a sudden blood all over. So I think he thought the scars were cool later on, but when it happened, he was probably like, oh shit, what did I do?
Yeah. So, what do you thought? It was like maybe like, oh, this is a cosmetic nightmare. And then he realized it maybe enhanced his character.
Yeah, I think I remember the first time I ever met Sabu. I was probably like 9, and that made Chris 19. And I just remember walking over. He had all those scars. I'm like, hey, mister, what happened to you? He's like, I fell. I'm like, Cook, what happened to this guy? He fell. Everybody just started laughing. Because, I think that was right when they got back from Japan. But, I've known Sabu for a long time. He's an awesome dude.
I sort of hinted at it before. I should have asked you this before we were recording. Are you announcing that you're writing a second book? Or are we not saying that at the moment?
Oh, I'm not saying that at the moment. I'm not sure. I just said I have so many extra stories. It could be another book.
Oh, right. I thought like in one of the messages, you were actually thinking about writing a story about Balls.
The Balls book. Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking about. I thought you meant like a part 2 of my brothers. No, I definitely want to. And I talked to John Cosper about it. He said that's something he would definitely, would be up for doing. And I think it'd be a great way to honor Balls, to put a book out there, and all the boys have Balls stories, and I just think it would be a really fun, and people would really find it interesting and funny at the same time, because that was Balls. He was a really unique character, and he was a hell of a person, So I think his book would be great.
Would the book be called Fighting, Crying, and or Masturbating at the Same Time?
I don't know if we could pull that off for the title. That story.
Well, he pulled it off. He pulled it off more than once, apparently. At the same time.
I know. Yeah, in Puerto Rico, like me and my brother are sitting in the hotel at the Empress Hotel, and Balls comes in and he's all, he's all butthurt about something. He's like, I don't know, guys. I'm going into the water to cry and masturbate. We're like, you're going to what? He's like, I'm going to cry and masturbate. So he leaves, and we're like, what the fuck? And we walk outside, and there he is with his back turned. Everybody, you can kind of see his hand in the ocean. We're fucking dying. We're like, how can you do those two simultaneously? But dude, he's a funny guy, bro.
Do you know what's weird is that, like, I mean, you can schedule an act of self-pleasure, but I also like the fact that he was scheduling a cry as well. I mean, it's not that he did that at the same time. It's like, right, I'm going to the sea and then I'm going to cry.
Yeah, well, you could see that he was a crier. Like he would cry about things a lot, So, I think he came in already a little bit teary-eyed. But dude, he was so funny. Did I tell you the Carlos fucked me story last time or no?
I don't think so.
Because it was just, it's so balls. So, to get to my house, I kind of have to pass his house, right? Or I could take a quick detour. So anyway, he's I go by his house, he's outside, and he's by the mailbox. He's like, hey, he like tells me to come over. So I go over there, and he's like, JC, he's like, I'm waiting for the mailman. When the mailman comes, get really pissed off with me. I'm like, okay. So the mailman comes, and out loud he's like, oh Jesus, Carlos fucked me. Oh no. And he starts telling, his girl, he's like, oh, Carlos was supposed to pay me, but he didn't, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, JC, let's go for a ride. Let's call him. So we get in the car, we go for a ride. He's like, Carlos really did pay me. He goes, check this out. He's like, I bought this ceremonial dagger. He's like, this was $400. And he goes, I bought this bottle of absinthe. And he pulls out this bottle of absinthe. He's like, this was $400. It was, he's like, I got it from Romania. He ordered it off the internet. And he's like, this is the real stuff. So I think it was a $1,200 payday. He brought home $400, and the $800 he spent on a dagger and the absinthe. The absinthe we drank that day, like, he's like, first you got to put it in a spoon, put it on fire, and throw it in the thing, and then you drink it. By like the third shot, me and him were just slugging it. Then we're wrestling. So I don't know where the dagger went. So we drank all the absinthe and the dagger somewhere.
So you had absolutely nothing to show for $800 worth. How do you spend $400 on absinthe? I mean,
I don't know.
It's like $20, $30 here.
Yeah, well, Balls, I had to get the authentic one with the wormwood because that's illegal. So I had to go through, I mean, he could have told, I don't know how much absinthe costs. He could have spent $40 and told me he spent $400. I don't know, But yeah, he's a.
I was going to ask this, right? And I've never actually found out, where did the actual name Balls Mahoney come from?
So it was Paul Heyman's idea, and originally he was supposed to be a sadomasochistic biker, so he'd have like that biker hat, and then he was supposed to get hit and be like he liked it, like he liked pain, and then Balls kind of put his own kind of spin on it, and it evolved into Balls Mahoney. But Paul Heyman originally came up with the concept. That's why his early ECW matches, he has like a little leather hat, like a little leather thing. They wanted to make him like, sadomasochistic biker who liked pain.
And
so that was
what, he just like having his balls flicked or something, and that was his that was
like anything the guy could do to him, he would just be like, he would like it. He would like turn him on. That was the idea. He was from Nutley, New Jersey, which is a town in New Jersey. So Balls Mahoney, this sadomasochistic biker from Nutley, New Jersey.
Of course. I mean, I don't know if those two go together hand in hand or balls in hand or whatever. But I'll ask one more thing before Chris. We talk more about Chris. And New Jack passed away a few months ago. I know I asked you for a New Jack story. For the life of me, I can't remember which one you told me. But I'll bring this up as well. I spoke to Francine and said, probably the same as Sabu or Terry. Once you got to know him, he wasn't a scary dude. He was just a great guy to be around. And
oh yeah, no man, he was really freaking cool. And like I think my fondest memories of New Jack, like we were always cool to each other. But I remember just when I was a little kid in the ECW arena, he was just always super cool with me. He would he'd be like, hey kid, help me find weapons for my to put in my garbage can, or to put in the cart. So I'd go all around, I'd find him weapons. He'd be like, oh thanks bro. Like he was great. He was just a great person, personally to me, his he definitely stuck out. Like there were like I said, a bunch of guys when I was young in ECW locker room were really cool, and New Jack was definitely one of them.
For the life of me, I can't remember who I originally heard this off, but I'm sure someone said like New Jack he was like one of the most naked people in the locker room all the time, just wandering around wherever.
As far as I can remember, I remember seeing Tommy Rich naked more than him. Tommy Rich was kind of naked a lot. Yeah, it could be. Like I said, a lot of times I'd get there first, say what's up to the guys, then go to the Eagle's Nest and watch the match. And then, as I got a bit older, like sophomore year and shit, as it says in the book, my brother would go on the road and I'd be like, yeah, dude, I'll take care of the house. And then, I'd have parties over there. So I would like split time between going to wrestling shows and having parties at my brother's house.
Yeah, with New Jack, of course, everybody probably remembers him for maybe quite a few things actually, but the dives and also fights backstage, and then obviously after ECW, probably more in the ring as well. But do you remember any, like, while you were watching, just any crazy dives that you just thought no one could survive that one?
Yeah, well, I have two crazy. So one, the one crazy dive was at Convention Hall in Asbury Park. Because I remember going up there and like me and my friends got to the building early, and I remember going up to that balcony being like, God damn, like this is I didn't know he was going to do a dive. I was just like looking. We were just walking around because the building was empty, and then when he did that dive from that balcony, that was insane. Because that's like Convention Hall. They have like bands play there, so that's like the upper deck where they like the cheap tickets are, and he jumped all the way from that, you know. But I remember the crazy New Jack story was there was a show in Atlantic City. Somehow Balls got in some promoter's ear, or some boxing promoter got him to run a wrestling show. And it was New Jack versus Chemical Ali versus Skinhead Ivan. Now, Skinhead Ivan did a racist gimmick, right? And New Jack's like, oh, I hate this fucking skinhead motherfucker. And went out there and fucking cut Skinhead Ivan to ribbons. But Skinhead Ivan is a freaking Puerto Rican from the Bronx, you know. So he's like, I'm not really a white or a racist, you know. He's like, it's just a gimmick. But Jack didn't know that, and he like freaking really. It was to a point where I remember Chemical Ali went, you know, was out of the ring and just like stayed out of the ring for a while, and Jack was just like, just cut up Ivan pretty good. So, and I think it was also because the show was outside. We were next to like some club, and they kept handing us over pictures of mojitos. So all the boys just kept drinking mojitos. We were just drinking. So, you know, that could have added to the craziness.
Is it definitely a slice first, ask questions later situation?
Yeah, definitely slice first. He's not going to be there in the ring. Like, what's your nationality? All right, I'm not going to slice you. He goes right for he goes for the blade right away.
Right, I'll leave New Jack there. Rest in peace, New Jack.
Yeah, rest in peace.
And straight to your brother then. I've got, a ton of different questions than I had the first time, because obviously I've read the book. And it's a great book as well. It's where is it? I put it somewhere. You can't see where it is. It's up there for everyone. So it's going to be on the screen for everyone to see while I'm talking to you throughout. And awesome. One of the things I was probably most interested in was FMW. Was that Chris's first trip to Japan? And just experiences in like deathmatch wrestling, which is just going to be so foreign to what he was used to, obviously.
Yeah, it was. And I remember he liked it. He came back and with like this whole new like reverence for Japan after he went there. He wrote in like marker, he put FMW in his door jamb in his bedroom. And before the shows, they wanted him to have face paint on, and they called him the Blonde Bomber, and there was a Blonde Bomba when he came to the ring. But like one day he'd have like a freaking like a star across his face. Like all the boys got to do up his makeup. But as far as the death match thing goes, he was in a death match. I believe it was like him, Sabu, Onita, and the Sheik were all in a barbed wire fire match. And I don't know if he was in the match or tell me about the match, but either way, they used like toilet paper to wrap the barbed wire with and light it on fire. And the guys were in there wrestling, and the bits of toilet paper fell into the ring and caused like this giant inferno. And the younger guys were able to just like jump over it and get out of there. But the Sheik was older, and I had to like scoot out and like got burned up pretty bad. But yeah, my brother came back with so many stories from Japan about how over the Sheik was, like how they thought he was really like this bad, crazy person. Like the Sheik could stop traffic. He could just like, walk into the middle of the road and be like, people would be running around away from him. So yeah, that was his first trip to Japan, was it was around the Smoky Mountain time. But he loved it, man.
92? I think I've got 92 for FMW.
Yeah, so he was 20, yeah.
Yeah. Did he ever tell you any stories about Onita and just like how crazy loved he was?
Yeah, he did. He told me so many. There's so many. I've forgotten more than I can remember. I remember him telling me about Onita, and I think he was there when Onita fought a boxer. I think it was it one of the Spinks brothers? Leon Spinks. So anyway, it was Onita versus Leon Spinks, who's a legit boxer, was a world heavyweight boxing champion. And the boxer just boom, 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 was just lighting Onita up. And Onita, for the finish, just like no-sold and freaking, ended up beating the boxer. But to sit there and get hit, boom, just taking shots from a boxer, just eating them, boom, 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 boom. And so that was the one story. It's like, dude, this guy, he was getting freaking wailed on, and he just kept coming for more, So, and yeah, just the whole, like my brother, I remember him telling me, he's like, dude, Onita would like wrap himself in barbed wire and then just like throw himself at a dude. Like he just had no regard for his own personal well-being. He just went after it, So, much respect, man. I mean, that was his thing. So what are you going to do?
I love the story that somehow, I don't know what part of like Japanese politics he got, he went into politics, got elected to some position of note, and then he got thrown out he was disbarred, or whatever the political version of that is, because he tried to organise a threesome on government property. And I was just like, God, Anita, you're the man.
I know, right? Letting one of the boys into politics probably isn't the best idea. Well, Kane seems to be doing pretty good.
Yeah, Inoki.
Oh, duh, yeah. Inoki.
I'm trying to think. There was another one, Hiroshi Hase. I think it's like light heavyweight Japanese geezer. He was in the... I know he wrestled Owen Hart a lot. That's all I know. I'm not up on my Japanese wrestling, but I know there's a few in Japan at least. They love their wrestling over there. Yeah,
I have a couple of VHS tapes that Cook brought home, and we'd watch them, and they were nuts, man. There was one like it was a freaking piranha tank match. They had a tank full of piranhas, and the gimmick was to throw the guy off the scaffold into the thing of piranhas. I want to say Onita was probably involved in that one too, But again, these are I was very young with these memories. I was like, if it was 92, that means Chris was 20 and I was 10. But I like I said, I remember watching all the tapes, all the crazy stuff, him telling me all the crazy stories. So yeah, man, it was a good time for him over there.
Yeah, did he? I'm presuming probably more in All Japan and New Japan when he worked there. But in FMW, did they pay well enough to justify going over there for the tours, or was it just for the experience?
No, I think they paid well enough. I remember him saying, I think that was like one of his first bigger paydays was going over there, because wrestling was so huge. There were those FMW events were really drawing, and I think he like I said, when he came back from Japan that first time, he had like a total. He would answer the phone going mushy mushy, like he like loved the whole Japanese culture and like the way the fans were there, and how he'd reverse a hold and just hear like from the fans. Like he just like loved everything about it,
Yeah, I've been once and loved it. I'm gonna do the whole road trip from North Island to all the way to the South Island. Just that's something I've just always wanted to do. I wanted to drive across America, and now I want to drive down, across Japan as well. So there's my 2 bucket list trips, I reckon.
Yeah, I want to definitely. I have to, Japan's it's kind of on my list. I've been a lot of places, but I want to go to Colombia, Brazil, and then maybe after that Japan. But I've been all over Europe. I haven't been to the UK yet, though. I want to check that out.
No, if you like bad weather, then you're really missing a lot. I can tell you that. It's awful. Right, I'll move on then. And I teed you up beforehand, said I've only got 1 or 2 Tammy questions, because we've always got to ask a Tammy question on. But this is actually quite a nice one, weirdly. So you describe in the book that Tammy really didn't have aspirations to actually be in front of the camera, or at least that's the impression I got from the writing. And then Jim Cornette basically said, you be a manager, and she was actually quite taken aback. Is that true, that she genuinely never thought of getting into the business to that degree?
I mean, it's not that I didn't ask her at the time, but I think it was more like something that that she fell into. My brother was going there. She was either going to go to college in Miami, or she was going to go with my brother to Tennessee, and she chose Tennessee. And I think Jim Cornette was like, Chris, your girlfriend's really good looking. We can use her on the mic. And she ended up being like a natural, on the mic. And then I think as she was getting some steam and people started liking her, then she really took to it. Mm-hmm. So that's how it kind of worked out.
Yeah. Was it mostly just like completely natural to her, or how much of a hand did Chris and Jim Cornette have in molding her into being a on-screen persona?
Well, I think she she met my brother at a show, so she obviously was familiar with the wrestling business. But as far as coaching her, I think that she was just a natural, a good promo. She was talented at that. I don't think there was really much coaching at all. I mean, Cornette, was the one that gave her the chance. Was like, Chris, I can only pay you this amount, which wouldn't make sense for you to stay out here, or both of you guys can come out here and I can pay both of you, and then you guys would have enough to have an apartment and live here. So that's how she kind of got into the business.
Yeah, but she was basically sort of following Chris, because they were in a relationship, rather than, if I follow him, maybe I can get on screen, sort of thing. Right.
Yeah. No, I don't. In the beginning, I don't think she had any aspirations at all. She was just going there with him. But I think as you hang around the business, you kind of want to be in there. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably what happened with her.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to WWF then. And I didn't really ask many questions about the WWF the first time. So reading through the book, and I think we all know about WWF, WWE contracts. You're an independent contractor that meets practically none of the requirements for an independent contract. Do you remember your family and Chris and you discussing the contract itself? And I think I didn't quote it, but it's basically, it had a lot of holes. What were some of the more unfavorable terms the WWF wanted Chris to sign for?
So what I remember, basically, I remember my bro coming home. Cook came home with a WWF hat on, WWF gear on, and I think he had already signed the contract. It was about to sign it. Showed it to my father, who called up. One of our neighbors is a lawyer, and the lawyer looked at it and was like, Chris, you shouldn't sign this. He's like, it basically says that you can be terminated at any time for any reason. He's like, there's so many holes in this contract that it wouldn't be wise for you to sign it. And my brother's thinking was, all I want to do is wrestle. This is the only game in town, and I want to be there. So he signed it, regardless. Also, I forget if I say it in the book or not, but my uncle was just recently retired a college football coach, and I remember him, giving my brother the whole steroids talk about don't do steroids. I remember eavesdropping on that conversation, and again, he took that with a grain of salt. He heard him out and said, yeah, you're right, but that was going around then. And it's wrestling, so I'm sure it's still going on, obviously.
Well, there's with the wellness policy and everything, I think, and I don't know how much, but therapeutic exemptions and stuff like that. So God knows how many people are actually on either steroids or
TRT.
TRT, yes, thank you very much. So who knows? Basically, only their doctors and the company themselves know who's got exemptions or exemptions.
You can work a doctor for TRT. That's, especially if you're a wrestler. Are you kidding me? How easy it'd be to work a doctor? Like, oh man, I feel drowsy all the time, and there's. I'm sure a lot of the guys can work doctors for the gas.
Yeah. With Chris's initial exposure in the WWF, we all know the character Skip and everything, but it's only really when I read the book that I realised just how immediately unhappy he was with all the suggestions that the WWF were coming up with for his character. I'll let you go through it, and we're not just talking about characters, we're talking about costumes as well.
Well, I think for him, he was always just tunnel vision, pro wrestling, WWF, that's what I'm going to do. And when they gave him these ideas, he was just like, no, I don't want to do that. Just let me be myself, that's what I want to do. He was unhappy, but he was happy at the same time. He was happy to be there. That was validation for all the hard work he put in. And, he could tell our parents that, look, I'm making a living doing this wrestling that they didn't want him to do. But as far as gimmicks and costumes, he would have been much more happier if he had more of a hand in the creative part of it. I think he, like they say, tried to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, as they say in the South. But he wasn't happy with the gimmick. He obviously, and I think if it was up to him, he would just be Chris Candido, or something, the Blonde Bomber, or Mr. Charisma, or one of his older gimmicks.
Yeah. I know Tammy said it. You say it in the book as well. What was the Mighty Mouse? I know, obviously, the cartoon Mighty Mouse, but they weren't going to give him like ears or anything, or what? What was? How was that character explained to him?
I'm not sure. I just remember seeing promo pictures of it, and he was like standing there with like a freaking cape on, and it just, the aesthetics, it didn't look good. It looked like they were, like goofing. It was like a goofy gimmick, and that wasn't him, because he'd been wrestling professionally since he was 13. He's like, dude, I gotta dress like fucking Mighty Mouse, So I think that's where, and I'm sure I said this in the book too. They were like, after the Body Donnas run was finished, they were up there, and my brother was helping train the younger guys. Like he wrestled The Rock. He was working with The Rock and Mark Henry, and at that time he's like, I have a window of time to be a star and make money in this business, and that was when I want to do it. That's when he jumped ship, for other reasons too. But basically, that was he. In hindsight, he would, like, when he was 30, 31, he was like, dude, I should have just fucking stayed, trained people, and shut my fucking mouth. And then when my time came, they'd repackage me or whatever. But at the time, he was real hard-headed, because it's like, he worked his whole life to get to this place, and then they put him in a gimmick he wasn't very happy with. So he always made the best of it. He was never an outward complainer. He always like laughed things off, but yeah, he wasn't very happy with it.
This is just my personal theory, but since reading the book, and I'm going to bring up the book many more times, it's right there as well if you want to buy it. It's on Amazon. And this is just my own theory, is because he was complaining so much about, the characters and, having to wear a cape originally and stuff like that. Do you think that's why, at least in the initial run before Tom Pritchard came in, that's why he was booked so low on the card with Barry Horowitz? Do you think that was maybe a sort of, this is what complainers get kind of thing?
Yeah, it could have been. It definitely could have been, and he could have not even realized it. They could, that could definitely be a possibility. So he laughed off the Barry Horowitz stuff. Like I said, that's what he was most known for. Like, people come up to him in the mall and like pat themselves in the back and run away, and he'd laugh about it. But I know, like, that's not where he wanted to be. Obviously, he wanted to be, because talent wise, he knew he had it all. He was talented, and there were guys a lot less talented than him that were in higher positions. So I think that's why he kind of bitched and moaned about that kind of stuff, behind the scenes.
Yeah. So we'll move on, and this is the other bit I will bring up, Tammy, but not in this portion, is I didn't realise until I read the book, No Gimmicks Needed, by John Cosper and Jonny Candido, that Shawn Michaels and Chris had a bit of heat not related to Tammy at all, and I didn't realise until reading it. Can you explain?
Yeah, there was, I want to say it was all the wrestling history stuff in there, John Cosper wrote, but I remember my brother telling me about this. I think it was like a lumberjack match, and my brother and Shawn were opposite each other, and they both fell out of the ring like right next to each other, and my brother commenced to whomping the hell out of him and threw him back in the ring. And for some reason, like backstage, Shawn Michaels was, what the fuck? You like fucked up the finish. He's like, you were laying right next to me. How could I not hit you? Like, what the fuck? We were against each other. And they got into it. I heard they got into it pretty freaking, it didn't come to blows, but it was just about to, pretty much. And it was about, the two of them fell, like I said, like boom, right next to each other. He's like, what am I supposed to do? Pretend he's not there? So, that was their first bone of contention. Because Michaels was like, oh, you're gonna fuck the finish up. And my brother's like, how could I just not hit you if you're fucking right next to me?
Yeah, in the book, it's almost half understanding Shawn Michaels in the sense that he, was under so much pressure, and it's been said many other times that when he had the title in '96, he was even more difficult to deal with because he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And I don't know if You know any more about that, or can speak to that?
Well, I think he, as well as my brother, felt like he put in his time. I remember seeing him on the indies with my brother and Sabu, just like, everybody else. And he felt like he put in his time. He did the Rockers thing, and it was his time to shine. A lot of guys who, I mean, whatever Shawn Michaels, whatever, you could say about him, is he's very passionate about wrestling. He takes it very seriously, and so does my brother. And I think that Shawn Michaels got to the spot he got to, and felt, and he did deserve it and wanted to stay there. And that's probably why he was hard to deal with. Like he told me when I sat next to him in the locker room, just like, he's like, kid, sometimes if you gotta, if you want to make it in this business, you gotta be out for yourself and be kind of a jerk sometimes.
Yeah. With obviously, and it's been done to death, and I won't harp on it. Tammy, Shawn, there's a 9-month affair, and Chris was obviously never okay with it, even though he internalized a lot of the upset that he was dealing with. As far as the clique goes, I know there was a confrontation in '97 in the locker room, but before then, what were Chris's run-ins or hanging outs with members of the clique?
They were fine. Like, I remember him like being friends with all of them, like him and 123 Kid were buddies. Him and Shawn Michaels were buddies. I think it was once that I don't know how long, once they got there, that Tammy started banging Shawn, but so it wasn't right away. So I remember, like, my bro being cool with them for a couple months and telling me this guy's cool. And then after that, it was like madness. Like, the two, she was doing her thing with him. He was going fucking crazy about it. So he at the time, he was going crazy about something. I didn't know what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, bringing this up because we'll go to ECW actually we're going now then. Do you remember this locker room thing? Because I'd never heard this story that with the triple threat, Scott Hall turns up to ECW just to watch the show with his kid, and he gets a frosty reception from Shane, Bam Bam, and Chris. And I think it was probably Shane leading it. But I mean, do you remember that at all?
No, I remember the story of it, of him going there. And I think it was kind of like, because I know Shane had a tough time up there, and so I think it was like, now he's in our territory, and let's break his balls a little bit, because he was, over there, they were breaking his balls. So, I don't remember a ton of this, I could picture my brother kind of giving him the cold shoulder or whatever. I remember years later in Japan, they made up. They were on a bus together, and they were sitting next to each other. Scott Hall's like, Chris, man, why are you such a dick to me, dude? He's like, me being a dick to you. He's like, you were a dick to me. He's like, I knew it was one of us. And they freaking laughed, and they laughed it off. And then they were buddies after that. But yeah, that, all the wrestling historian stuff, John Cosper knows better than I do. All the personal stories are the ones that I added mostly, and like what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, with obviously you were behind the scenes more in ECW, and more of these questions will be focused on you, obviously. So triple threats, I've mentioned it before: Shane Douglas, Bam Bam Bigelow, Francine's there as well, and then Chris comes in, and they must have all got on well enough because they all got matching tattoos pretty soon afterwards.
Yeah, the whole story was crazy. I was at my grandmother's house for no, I'm sorry, I was at my Aunt Kathy's house for somebody's birthday, and limousine pulls up. My mom's like, Cook's here in a limousine. He wants to take you for a ride. I'm like, all right. So I go out there. My bro's in his gimmick. And he's like, oh, dude, he's like, I left WWF. I'm going to this new federation. I'm like, really? He's like, you want to take a ride with me to Philadelphia? I'm like, yeah, let's go. So, I told my mom I'm going with Cook to Philadelphia. I remember rolling up to the building and just seeing all these fans everywhere, like crazy fans trying to look in the limousine. And I'm thinking, I'm like, are these people even going to know who he is? Like, because they don't watch WWF, are they even going to know who he is? What's going to happen? So I remember he went there. I was up in the Eagles Nets watching. He had a match with Spike Dudley that night, hit him with the top rope power bomb, got a great reception. He was so happy, when he came back through the curtain. And him, Shane, and Bammer got along great. They were like brothers, and my brother had known Bam Bam since forever. Bam Bam was at the shows in Marucci. I think he's 9 years older than Chris or 10 years older than Chris. So like when my brother was 13, that'd make Bammer was like, 24, and he was already kind of established. So he'd come to the little shows in Marucci Park in Spring Lake, and, the newspapers would show up and all kind of stuff. So he'd known Bammer for a while, and I guess him and Shane gelled. So they, they were all hanging out together, and they all got the triple threat tattoos, and they were all really good friends.
Yeah. With Bam Bam, Don Morocco told me a story that like this is when he was first in the WWF. He'd only been in the business a couple of years, and he was loudly complaining that he was only making something like $14,000 a week.
I could. Who said that?
That was Bam Bam Bigelow was complaining he was making that much. Sorry, Don Morocco told me the story.
Oh. Yeah, I guess I could see that if he. It could be. I know Bammer made a lot of money. Just that one match with Lawrence Taylor, I think he made, if not $1 million, close to $1 million for that match.
Jesus.
And he always had loot. Even years later, he was a guy that used to keep a lot of loot around the house. So there was times when my bro was not doing so well, like financially. Bammer would hit him off with some money. When Chris was going through his shit. So yeah, Bammer made a lot of money. He'd been doing it for a while.
Yeah, there seems to be two completely separate Bam Bam Bigelows. The early ones who was the quite hard to deal with, and then by the time he got back to the WWF in 93, I think, pretty really professional and stuff like that. I mean, have you got any more Bam Bam Bigelow stories that you can share with us?
I have a ton of them. I mean, he was always so laid back. Like, come on, dude. Like he would put it like this. So he lived in Asbury Park, and me and Chris trained at this gym, Jersey Shore Fitness Shop in Bradley Beach. And it was a chest day, and me and my brother we probably had 365 on the bench, and we're gonna hit it for 4 to 6 reps. Bammer stops in, probably smells like smoke. Comes over, he's like, "What are y'all doing? Lifting weights, dude?" He's like, "Let me try." Gets under there, just freaking knocks it out like it's nothing. Like he was just one of those guys that he just had that natural strength, and he was always really laid back and cool. And if you want me to skip ahead and tell a funny Bam Bam story,
no, you don't have to skip ahead at all. Carry on.
So we maybe in Bammer left New Jersey, and he's like, he's telling us over the phone. He's like, I opened up Bam Bam Bigelow's ice cream parlor and sandwich shop in Pennsylvania, and he's like, it's on 3 acres. He's like, for the grand opening, I want to do Bam Fest. He's like, so at the time he bought the ECW ring. We had it set up at his friend's garage in Belmar, which is down by us. And he's like, we'll get the ring truck, bring it up here. We'll have wrestling. We'll have bouncy castles for the kids. We'll have arm wrestling contests, live bands, like all these different things, right? So we're at Bam Fest, we wrestle. The first thing that happens is he's like, I don't want to oversaturate it with wrestling. So we had 4 matches: Balls versus Mike Cruel, me versus Thunderbolt, Paulie B versus Ray Apollo, who was Doink, and Bam Bam versus my brother. And then me and the guys, we got in a tug of war contest. So it was like me, my brother, 3 of my buddies, Bammer, and Balls. And we're winning. Like, we're in the finals, right? We were kicking everybody's ass at tug of war. And then in the finals, we come up against a professional tug of war team. These guys are 400 to 500 pounds each. They're chalking their hands up. They freaking have football cleats on. And so anyway, we huddle up. My brother's like, yo, there's no way we're beating these fat dudes. He's like, so let's get them going a little bit. And then on 3, we'll let the rope go. So we're going, they're going. We go 1, 2, 3. We let it go. They went, they fucking flew far, really far, all the way to the parking lot. One dude knocked into the ring truck, and they jumped up like they were going to do something for a second. And Bammer's like, what are you going to do? And then they were all like, yeah, they kind of slinked away. But it was so funny, man. I thought they would just fall down. They went like bowling pins, and flew half a block. It was pretty crazy.
With I'll ask one more, Bam Bam, then we'll move on. But where does he rank for you in the best big men category?
I don't know if I could think of any better than him. You know, he's right up there. I mean, I'd put him at. I just in my. I put him at number one. I suppose. I mean, who else? Who else was better than Bammer? You know,
like Vader, maybe.
Vader. I was gonna say Vader's up there with him. But I mean, skill wise, he could move, the way he could move and the shit he could do for being such a big guy. It was just really impressive.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you this as just a fan who's watching for the Eagles. In fact, actually, before I do, who would often be in the Eagles' nest watching the matches with you?
Everybody would come up and down, so it's hard to really say. A lot of the guys would my brother a lot of times, Louis Spicoli a lot of times. I would say most of my brother, Louis, Nova, they'd all pop out the Eagles nest to watch a little bit, but they didn't want to take away from the match. They'd kind of like hold back. And sometimes it was a lot of the guys, and they would just line up against a wall just out of the sight of the fans. And they would all, like, not all because it wasn't big enough, but there would be like, 6-8 guys out there, watching the match from there. And there was also, like, in the ECW locker room, it was just like sheetrock. So people punch holes in the wall, and you could just watch from the locker room through the sheetrock, through the little hole. So there'd be people looking through little holes, watching the matches and stuff in the back. So, yeah, there'd be a handful on the Eagles nest. Some of the guys would be messing around, and some of the guys would be watching through one of the many holes in the sheetrock.
Yeah. Did the ECW arena ever improve their facilities? Did they ever get showers in, for example?
No, I don't. I'm trying to think. Last time I wrestled there was in like 2007, and it still pretty much looked the same. I don't remember there. I don't even remember there being a bathroom back there. Like in the locker room, there was one in the building. But I remember asking Bill Alfonso, I'm like, "Where do I take a piss?" He's like, "Just go open that door in that hallway." I'm like, "Okay." He just open the door to nowhere. I just pissed outside. So that's what everybody was doing, I suppose.
Was it not like at least like no one was like circling around a bucket to shit in throughout the day or anything?
No. I think if it got that serious, they would just go around the building into the regular bathroom. But so that was never really a problem.
Yeah. So take us backstage then, the ECW arena. So, I mean, if they didn't even have running showers or anything, did they have a bar somewhere in the arena? Did they have any kind of locker rooms or just a bunch of empty large rooms?
So it was a bunch of empty large rooms. It was like, well, not empty. One had a wrestling ring in it. One was like just one big giant like warehouse room where everybody would like set up and change. Then there was like a side room that was maybe like 2-3 times the size of a bedroom that like some of the top guys would change in, or it didn't have to be, not even that. Maybe if somebody needed to talk, they would go into that room. But it was just a series of big rooms. And as far as a bar, people pretty much brought their own stuff. Sam in and bring a bottle of vodka, some fruit juice to mix it in a case of beer. People would just bring whatever they wanted. And, Tony Luke's, there was this cheesesteak place, Tony Luke's down the street. So, people would send me to go get cheesesteaks and bring them back. And so it was just kind of like, and then like there was like a crappy little staircase that went up to the Eagles nest. And then like Paul Heyman used to give his speeches, he'd like get everybody riled up. He'd go up before you get to the Eagles nest, like the platform up there, and he'd like hold court there and give these speeches to get everybody amped. And so it was just a series of large rooms.
It's funny you mentioned Paul Heyman because he's exactly who I was going to talk about next. Did you have many interactions with Paul personally, or I mean, I've got loads of questions about him, but I mean, you personally with Paul, was he welcoming? Did you chat to him a lot?
No, he was very welcoming. I mean, again, I was a kid at then, and he was just very, very cool. Always seemed very like focused on what he was doing. Always running around, talking to this guy. Somebody trying to find him, but he was always cool and cordial. And even later on, when I was older, like hanging around WWE, he's like, "Oh, dude, it's so great to see you here." So he was cool. I don't know him, like to like call him up and hang out with him, but we were always cordial to each other and cool,
Yeah, you actually preempted one of my questions I was going to ask, but can you give me an example? Maybe not an impression because you'll hurt your throat, but can you give me an example of one of Paul's rallying speeches?
One of Paul Heyman's?
Yeah.
He'd be like, "Guys, it's 3rd and 10. This is the Super Bowl. You have the ball. it's your ball. You're gonna take the ball and you're gonna take it to that fucking end zone for the touchdown, and we're gonna win, motherfucker. And people be like, yeah. And he said some variation of that one time, and like he would get everybody. I just remember him saying, "It's your ball. You want to see this? You take the ball and you show him what you can do with it. Just run that ball." So he was good at getting the guys amped up.
I always think like his voice always reminded me, at least when I was a kid, of Gilbert Godfrey when he's doing Iago the parrot in Aladdin. He's got that same sort of rah, sort of like how does he speak like that all the time?
I don't know, but yeah, dude, he was a movie. I know him and Jim Cornette always butt heads, but I think it's both because both of them fucking love wrestling so much. You know what I mean? Like for all the shitty things Paul did, one thing, did or not did, whatever, he freaking loves the business, and so does Cornette. So that's why I got respect for Paul Heyman a lot, and he's always been cool to me,
There's at least one example in the book, No Gimmicks Needed, about Paul Heyman doing a bit of a Tennessee switcheroo on the phone with Chris, and was that just the only time when he pretended to be Raoul?
Oh yeah, he would do he would do weird shit, man, and everything was like a secret with him, like this is only for you to hear, and like he was like a flim flammer kind of. I don't know how to explain it, like he was always. It always seemed like he was stressed out and had like an ulterior motive and was like fucking like Dr. Evil. You know what I mean? Like he always had something going on. Like, I need to talk to you and only you. Like, fucking, I don't know. Again, but I do remember that story. Yes.
Did, you're going to have to tell the story then, because that will be a teaser for the book.
I remember hearing it in the book. You probably know more than I do because Cosper's that. But I remember he called my brother. So what you tell? What was my brother at WWE at the time or no?
No. It was late '97, but in the book it was Tammy and Chris were going to Montreal for Survivor Series '97, and there was something about a tape.
Oh, yeah. And he called up and said it was Raoul, and yeah, I don't remember the whole story, but now it's funny because my brother's Wikipedia page, they have his middle name is Christopher Raul Candido. And that's not his real middle name. So I had him change it. But yeah, like I said, Cosper knows more of the wrestling history parts, as I know more of the backstage stuff. But I do. It's the book I personally read, but I haven't read the finish. I like, because I wrote it. What happened was I started writing a book around like 2010, and I got like, I don't know, let's say 50, 60 pages in, and it was just like a stream of consciousness, just writing stories and all this shit. And I started at the end because it was like, so I started there, worked backwards. And then when Cosper got in touch with me, he's like, I want to do a book on your brother. I'm like, oh, I already started one. Let me see if I can find it. And I found it and I emailed it to him. And he's like, dude, this is really great shit. He's like, why don't if I can use this, I'll make you co-author, and then we'll go from there. So that's how that started.
Right.
And we had been, so I sent that book over to him. He used that, but then also every day I have a new story. I'd be like, oh, dude, this time, because me and my brother were together like 24/7, especially the last 2-3 years of his life. So I'd pass a place and I'd be like, oh man, this is the time that we stopped and shoveled this old lady's driveway when it was snowing out. This is the time, so I text him like 1,000 times a day with different stories. So it's hard to pick and choose which ones went into the book and which ones didn't.
Well, this one I don't think went to the book. There was something about money, but did Paul ever owe Chris and Tammy money at the end when they left?
Yes, they did. And he did. And he also did something like, in the beginning, my brother wanted to take a hand in like building ECW, and they were like, Paul was like, Chris, book all the boys' flights and hotel on your card and I'll give you the cash for it. And he did that in the beginning and he would get reimbursed, and then he was doing it and not getting reimbursed. And that's kind of what made him broke, and there was no like contract or anything. It was like on a handshake, so I don't know the figure that he ended up owing him, but I know he was doing that for for a while. My brother was like, at one point, he's like, my credit was so freaking amazing because, you know, I booked the trips, you know, couple, whatever, thousand, pay it back. And, you know, he's like, I could have bought a Lamborghini with my credit card. But then he stopped giving them, you know, he stopped paying them after a while. And then ECW went under.
Yeah, with the number fresh in my memory, I think it's 170,000 when American Express closed, cut Chris off.
It could be something like that. I remember me and him, this isn't in the book, but I remember one day he's just like, dude, he's like, I have to have money somewhere. He's like, I made so much fucking money. He's like, how do I not have more right now? He's like, so we had this one, like these steel Halliburton bags. And he's like, it's full of papers. He's like, let's go and look and see if I have any accounts anywhere. I'm like, okay. So me and him went to Paul's Tavern, this bar. We opened up his bag and we're looking through like bank papers and shit. I remember he was just like, dude, look at this. He's like, at one point, he's like, I had $560,000 in my checking account. Like, he was just like showing me receipts. We were trying to find, like, we were like calling banks. He's like, you know, sometimes he was fucked up. He's like, what if I was all gimmicked up and I just opened an account somewhere? That's a distinct possibility. So we were like looking through different, you know, it's not like we had online banking back then. You could find out. So we were just trying to see. Turned out he didn't. He thought he did, you know, but that's right before he fucking cleaned his act up and got everything together.
Yeah. I'll ask you a couple more ECW, then I'll ask a couple post ECW that I didn't realize and some extra information on, and then we'll do the grand finale, and then I'll let you go because I know you've got a couple of interviews today. So one person I actually find quite interesting with ECW, because apparently he just wasn't that liked, was Taz. And was it because he just sequestered himself in a corner all the time and wasn't, you know, part of the boys as much?
He was. I think it was because he took himself a little too seriously. All the guys were serious about wrestling, but they also like to joke around. You know, it's like, you know, I think he really thought he was Taz, like the baddest motherfucker on the planet. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, I think, why he rubbed guys the wrong way. And I know my brother worked a program with him. They, you know, they got along great. You know, they would talk on the phone, bullshit. I just know in the locker room, it'd be like, he would be sitting there and he'd be like surrounded by a couple of the guys that he was training, or were at what was the school? The House of Hardcore or something?
Yeah.
A couple of the students would be surrounding him. So it was almost like he was like, you know, closing himself off and also like taking himself like fucking, that he's, you know, this big tough guy.
Yeah.
So I think that's why guys were kind of thinking he's like a douche, you know?
Yeah. Did anyone ever try and test Taz that you know of?
Yeah, RVD slapped him in the head. That's the only one I remember. RVD slapping him in the head. And then and I remember I don't think I was there for that, because everybody's like, let's see if he does anything. And he didn't do shit back, you know, because I think RVD would have just kicked his head off his shoulders, you know? So yeah, I remember hearing him getting into it with people, but never fighting except for RVD slapping him.
Was it just like purely the character? And it's like, well, if I'm going to embody the toughest, you know, person in the world.
I remember guys giving him shit for or at least talking shit about when he had the FTW belt that he made himself. They're just like, oh, they wouldn't give him a push, so he made his own fucking belt. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And I think it was because they, like I said, he just kind of would sequester himself away, but not be away, still be like around everyone, but just being like took himself like a little too seriously. But again, all those guys were so young at the time. So what can you do? Yeah. He's a cool guy. Like, again, I saw Taz years later and he's awesome. So that was just, he was super serious about it, you know?
Speaking of somebody, we've gone from someone who's incredibly serious about their character to somebody who couldn't be more carefree and flights of fancy, Lance Storm. So Chris had like a really lengthy feud with him where they're tag team, but they can't stand each other and that kind of thing. Was Chris Candido just like in hog's heaven because he was wrestling someone who just took wrestling so as seriously as he did, was as good as he was, and memories of Lance Storm?
Yes, my brother was so freaking happy. Him and Lance had a freaking great relationship. Like, and you know, Lance is hard to like get a rise out of. My brother knew how to do it. He'd have him cracking up, and yeah, he loved it because both of them, like you said, they both took wrestling so seriously. They both loved what they were doing, and they were great friends, and the angle worked so well. You know what I mean? Because like my brother kind of like work his little haha out there, and Lance was super serious. It just worked. Like the ref would have his back turned, and Lance would hit the guy with the finisher, and then my brother would push him out of the way and cover the guy 1-2, and Lance would pull him off, and then it just the tag team stuff was great, and then they loved it. And then when they got to work each other, I think they were both in like wrestling heaven, because both of them were very crisp, very good at what they did, and took it very seriously.
Yeah, do you think they could have like elongated it even further, or just by the end of it they were just done and they didn't? Was there no like thought to like revisit it in the future?
I think again, I'm not quite sure. I could see them either linking up as a tag team again, or working another program at the time, because it was so good. Even as a tag team, they were really good. I was thinking about their singles matches and how good they were, but if you made them a tag team that actually liked each other, maybe that would be even freaking better. If they were actually, good guys or faces or heels, whatever. But yeah, I don't know if there was thoughts to, making the feud longer, but it would have been great if they could have somewhere down the line met. I think right before my brother died, I think that they were going to, him and Lance were going to do the Hardcore Homecoming, or the WWE event, first one.
There was the WWE one, then there was like the Shane Douglas one. That was Hardcore Homecoming, and then One Night Only was the WWE one.
The WWE one in 2005.
Yes, that was One Night Stand. One Night Stand, sorry.
Yeah, One Night Stand. I'm pretty certain that they wanted my brother and Lance to work each other on that match.
Really?
On that show. My brother died right before it. But I remember before my brother went to TNA, he went to OVW they called him to see if he wanted to work there or was going to work there. And Lance was holding court in the ring. And my brother said he just hit the ring and started chopping them. And they started just doing their old spots they used to do, like in front of all the guys, just out of nowhere. And he said it was just great to see Lance. And they had a couple things that were so crisp at doing. And he's like, dude, it was funny. He's like, I walk in, I see Lance and just hit the ring. We just fucking start going at it. So yeah, they were real good friends, and Lance is a real cool dude. Yeah, I still stalk them today.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple more, then we'll go to the main event. This is just fresh in my memory, so if you've got any stories, throw them at me. Is Dark Side of the Ring a few weeks ago? It had the plane ride from hell, and WWE or WWF, it always seemed to get a little more crazy when they were further away from home, either in Europe or Asia or wherever it was. Was it the same for ECW when, let's say, you guys had all traveled to Florida, for example?
Yeah, I think it was. Everybody would it would be like pirates looting a town for a weekend. You know what I mean? And then you go back to regular life. ECW is definitely the same. If once you get everybody together and booze involved, and then and plus there's no other high that's better than after you have a good match and a good show. Like the high that comes from that is like freaking, there's nothing that meets it. So after that, you're going out, you're celebrating, and it's a recipe for some wild times. I can't really like think of specifically any, I've been to like a lot of different crazy clubs and parties and shit, but I can't think of anything right off the top of my head that was that crazy. I mean, I saw a porn star almost bite Danny Doring's nipple off. That was pretty crazy.
Which nipple? Which porn star?
I forget what her name was. This is an XPW. If I'm jumping ahead, but so XPW, they were a California-based promotion.
With a porn star for no, sorry, he wasn't the porn star. It was Rob Black, wasn't it? He was the magnate.
Yeah, Rob Black, the porn. He owned this company, Diabolical or Anna, whatever the fuck it was called. But so I think it was like the 8th floor that all the boys stayed at, and everybody left their doors open, and the 8th floor was just a freaking huge party. And you'd go into rooms, people would be doing blow, people would be drinking, people would be going crazy. So I go in one room, and Danny Doring and Jerry Tootie, who was the Wall in WCW, both have their shirts off and are both chopping each other. Bam! They're just having a chopping contest. And there's a whole bunch of us standing around watching it. And then this porn star chick like goes over to Danny Doring and like gives him a chop, and then bites his fucking nipple, and he's like, "What?" He's like starts screaming and pushes her off, and he's got like it was nuts. And I forget who else. There was one dude who was running around naked with a sock on his wiener, and it was just like every room you went to was just like another party. But that just stuck in my head about the like just almost just tried to bite Danny Doring's nipple off like for no reason.
Was it Lizzie
like,
Borden?
No, it wasn't her, but it was a blonde. It looked like her. They were a wild bunch, those ones.
Well, I was going to ask XPW as well very briefly. It's like, what did Chris make of it? Because it was sort of it's obviously like a retread of trying to recapture ECW pretty much. So what was Chris's opinion of working there?
I think for him, it was more of a payday at the time. Like he wasn't as passionate about it as he was about his other projects or the other places he worked. He, always professional, always, was there. But this time, I remember in XPW, like during that time, he tore his groin so bad that during the week he could barely walk. Like the inside of his thigh was black and blue, and he would still wrestle through it. Like I don't know how he freaking did it, because during the week I'd have to like hold him up and he'd like limp to the freaking bathroom. Like that's how bad it was. And somehow I remember him, like, I forget who it was. I think he was, I forget who he was wrestling, but whoever it was, he told him, he's like, listen, whatever you do, don't touch this leg. And somebody gave him the perfect plex and grabbed that leg and he was just like, God damn it. So he had this like nagging groin injury that whole time, which probably, which made him a little more like tentative about doing things, because like I said, during the week he could barely fucking walk. So,
I think XPW always seems like a retread. I remember seeing like John Cronus there, I think, takes like in some light bulbs, and I think maybe I was probably 13, 14, 15 when all that was going down. I think I'd already outgrown that by then. It just didn't have the same heart.
No, it was different. It was different guys. They brought some, ECW guys in, but a lot of them were West Coast guys. They were all cool guys. But yeah, it wasn't ECW by any means,
Yeah.
And by that time, there were a bunch of different shows in town too. There was that. There was, Ring of Honor. There was.
I remember
the other one?
3PW, Blue.
3PW. Yeah. Yep. There was a bunch of different shows that people could go to. So, yeah, not ECW, but a fun time.
No, I know there was like a giant brawl between the two, but I know you also weren't there for that because Chris had gone to WCW by that point. I did have a WCW question. I'll skip it for now. If you've got enough time to do it, I'll bring it up at the end. Before the finale, I've got to ask this one. Great Khali, Chris Candido. It seems so weird to think that those two actually had a match, and it was a good match involving Khali. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. I remember that trip. Because I had to babysit Tammy. He's just like, dude, because he'd go away for like maybe like not almost a month. He'd be like you go for like 3 weeks. He'd be like, dude, just take care of Tammy. Take her out. Take her to sushi or whatever.
So it sounds like you're walking her like a dog once a day.
Yeah. Well, he's just like, dude, just make sure she doesn't fucking get arrested. So I'm like, all right. So I definitely remember that trip, but I remember him coming back and telling me about this dude, how he had to do a lot extra to get the guy over, but it ended up being a great match, and my brother loved doing shit like that, working guys and bumping for them and making their stuff look good. So yeah, he enjoyed working with Great Khali.
Yeah, I just find that so weird. This was before he had like apparently a botched knee operation, so he can actually move a tiny bit as well at this point. Khali could. You said it was a very memorable trip. Was that just because you had to look after Tammy all that time?
Yeah, well, because all right, I'll tell you the quick story then. So in 2002, I'm 20, and when you're 20, you're an idiot. And it was like midnight. Me and my friends were having a party, and we ran out of beer. We're like, who's 21 that is close that we can get him to get beer for us? So I'm like, I'll get Tammy to get us beer. So I get Tammy, the only place open is a bar that sells packaged goods because liquor stores close at 11 or whatever. So I'm like, here, Tammy, here's $40, $50, whatever, go in and get us a 30 pack, whatever. So I'm in the car waiting. And finally I go in, she's at the bar drinking, right? I'm like, oh geez. I'm like, let's get our beer and let's go. So she gets up, she walks over to where these dudes shooting pool, and they have like money on the table, and she takes the balls and smacks them all over the place. Right. So the guys shooting pool are like, yo, you fucking cunt. I'm like, don't fucking talk to her like that, bitch. So now I'm getting into it with these guys, right? So my friend Sue, who happened to be at the bar because she was dating one of the guys who was playing pool, was trying to calm everything down, and was like, hey Tammy, you have a beautiful house. You have a beautiful house. And she's like, you've been to my house, and turns around, bam, and starts attacking me. I'm like, fuck. So I'm fending her off. I, bouncers are like, time to go. So I'm carrying her out as I'm getting my ass kicked by her, holding her, getting hit in the head. So I put her in the front seat of my car. I'm driving, fending her off with one arm, driving with the next. Bring her back home. We get back home. She sits down, and this is the fucked up part. She sits down, and whatever. She's like, I feel bad what I just did. Can I give you a hug? I'm like, sure, I'll take a hug. So I go to give her a hug. I'm not looking. She goes, well, bam. She palm strikes me right in the fucking nose. She's like, palm strike. Al Snow told me that. Dude, it hurt so bad. I ran over to the door and just went, bah, 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 bah. I just like hit the door with like 6 punches and like freaking ripped it in half. I was so pissed because getting hit directly when you're not expecting it, getting fucking hit in the nose. Ugh. So that's why I remember that trip.
Did you ever get the change back from what Tammy didn't spend?
Oh, of course not.
No, of course not. Of course not. Okay, then. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go to the finale. I've got one more question afterwards if we can get to it. But the finale is as it was last time. The firing line. I'm going to give you a bunch of names. You tell me what you think about them. I imagine they're all cool, or most of them are anyway. And if there's a funny story to go along with it, please put it along with the name and what you think of them. And the first one is my man Bobby Blaze.
Bobby Blaze, yeah, he's I like Bobby Blaze. He's cool as shit. And he was the first one to take the top rope powerbomb. And I like him. I did his show. We bullshit back and forth on the phone sometimes. And he's a cool dude. I never really met him until like recently. But yeah, he's a cool dude. I like Bobby. Yeah,
it's funny actually because Bobby ended up getting in contact with me because he said, "Oh, Jonny Candido said that you were all right." So, oh, great. And then I ended up interviewing him. So everyone sort of anyway. Yeah, he's a great guy, Bobby. Next one is nice. Johnny Hotbody.
Johnny Hotbody. Holy shit, that's the name I haven't heard in a while. Johnny Hotbody. So him and my brother, they were actually wrestling each other the night that Chris met Tammy, and I knew they'd come up the ranks in the Indies together. They were really good friends, and so then. Years later, 2007, I'm wrestling at the ECW arena for Pro Wrestling Unplugged, and I end up opposite Johnny Hotbody in a 3-way tag. It was really cool. It was cool to see one of the guys that was like instrumental in my brother's one of the guys that I always saw as a kid, and now I get to work with him. So it was pretty cool. I like Johnny Hotbody.
Yeah, I had these ECW tapes that used to like feature like TV from maybe a 2-month span, the best of. And Johnny Hotbody it's ECW legend, Johnny Hotbody returning, and it was 94. I was like, God, how old has this dude been working?
For real. Yeah, in 2007, he was still great too. Yeah. So
I'll give you the next one, Dawn Marie.
Dawn Marie, she was always nice, always cool to me. I again, when I knew her, I was kind of young, so it was more like a hello type deal as to where the guys I would like pester to like wrestle with or play video games with or some shit. So I really wasn't. I knew her, but not really like on a personal level like that.
Yeah. Kevin Sullivan, someone else instrumental to a point, I think, in Chris's early career.
Yeah, just for me and Kevin Sullivan, it was just like hello, just being nice to each other. I never really got a chance to like sit down and pick his brain. I just said hello, goodbye, stuff like that.
Yeah. Mick Foley.
He's a really awesome guy. I remember meeting him when he was Cactus Jack down in Smoky Mountain. Him and my brother had a really great relationship. I haven't seen him in a while. Last time I saw him was at my brother's funeral. He really is like a genuinely great guy, So it's, I talk to him once in a while on the Twitter. So it's great that I still, can reach out to him, and him and Chris had some great matches.
Yeah, he's probably like Al Snow and a couple of others who are just like too nice to be in wrestling.
Yeah, for real, right?
Yeah. I've got a few more. Just incredible.
PJ, yeah, he's definitely my boy. We've had some parties together, me and him. We were he's I don't know if he's from Jersey, but he's lived here forever. So he's great in the ring. And he's a good guy to have a couple drinks with too. I like Pete a lot. He's cool as hell.
Do you remember when he came into ECW? Were you there at the time when, like, you just because he was probably like Chris in the sense that he'd come from a pretty crappy gimmick, and people probably knew he was capable of more. Do you remember like his response? The fans' response to him.
I do. They freaking loved him. They got behind him when he was just incredible. Obviously, they loved it. And then he had Jason and Nicole Bass in his corner. But no, his work then was like unbelievable, and it was so good because you got to see a lot of the guys like my brother and PJ, just incredible, and Balls, like kind of like be themselves and work to the best of their ability, which was good. What Paul did, he kind of like would give them more creative control of what they wanted to do than other places would. So
Ricky
for
Morton,
dude, he's still a character. It's funny because he could still play a young, good-looking guy, babyface, and he's like 60. Like, I think he's just amazing to watch in the ring. If you're a fan of any tag team wrestling, the Rock and Roll Express is where it's at. Yeah. Him and what's the other guy's name? Robert Gibson. Yeah, he's Punky, and the other guy's Hoop. But he's just a great wrestler, and it's funny that he can still pull off being a good-looking babyface at the age he is. So good for him.
Right. Nobody else will probably realize why I'm asking this, but Kamala. I think you wrestled him. I think.
Yeah. No, I did. He was cool. He was I wrestled a lot of the older guys because I liked the way my brother wrestled. I try to take. I like bumping around, and make people look the best as they possibly can. So I really enjoyed wrestling Kamala. It's and he was really an awesome guy. I like I said, I wrestled Kamala, Brutus Beefcake, Tito Santana,
Greg
Lex
Valentine.
Luger, Greg Valentine. Me and Greg Valentine, we worked together and we tagged together. There's King Kong Bundy. I've wrestled a lot of the older guys when I was coming up, and it was always great. I always had a great time. Jimmy Snuka, I could go on for a while, but yeah, I had a great time working with those guys.
Joey Styles.
Again, another cool guy, New York guy. But we got along great with him. And even when I saw him on later on in life, he recognized me, and he's always super cool, super cordial, and great at what he does. He's really a great ring announcer.
Yeah. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll go with Spike Dudley. You mentioned him before, I think, as well.
Yeah, Spike Dudley's so freaking awesome. He's so tough. I work with Spike too. He's a tough guy, man. I remember me and him, we had a hardcore match. I think it was Falls Count Anywhere, and just me and him trading forearms. His little forearms hurt like hell. He was laying them in, and he's so accurate with a chair. He's like Sabu. I mean, we did a spot where I went to the top rope to do a dive to the outside or something, and he folded up a chair and threw it at me and hit me perfectly right in the head with it. And no, he's just a great guy. And actually, during that match, the bottom rope broke, and we used that as an instrument. I was strangling him with it. And then, but yeah, no, he's a great. Spike's a great talent and a really cool guy behind the scenes.
Yeah, with the forearms, did they hurt because he just had very bony, sharp arms, or was he just throwing them in?
Well, both. I think we were both kind of lacing each other up. But yeah, I remember his little bony forearms hurt pretty good. Not he wasn't he was snug, but yeah, he was really good.
Yeah,
cool as hell.
Stiff in safe places, as they say. I actually still have 4 more. Dixie Carter.
Nice, very cordial. Again, I haven't talked to her in forever, but after my brother passed and everything, I went out there, and she was nothing but nice and welcoming and cool as hell. So I don't know her on the business side of things, but just as a person, she was always really cool to me.
Yeah. Here's one that I don't think I've ever asked before. Axel Rotten.
Oh, dude. Axel Rotten was so awesome. Me and him were good friends, and I talked to him right before he passed, which is it kills me. But I'll tell a good Axel story because he used to love when I tell the story. So he stayed at Chris's house for like, I don't know, a couple of weeks. He had nowhere to go, and so in Chris's driveway, me and my friends set up a basketball hoop, and we'd play 3-on-3, 2-on-2, whatever. And we're like, if we didn't have a guy, we'd get Chris, but he sucked. He would start chopping somebody and turn the basketball game into a wrestling match. But Axel comes out, and me and my friends are like, we're like, all right, you could play. So we gave Axel the ball. All of a sudden, he like dribbles it through his legs, freaking goes around his back and knocks down a jumper. We're like, holy shit, Axel can ball. So Axel jumped in the game, and he was good. We couldn't believe it. Like, we thought he was going to suck, but he was pretty good, man. Axel could play some hoops.
With the Balls and Axel, I mean, you look at a tag team and you just think, do you know what? I bet those two really get on outside the ring as well. It's not just like a company decision to put them two together.
They did, but Balls like to put heat on Axel, and Axel would put heat on Balls. Like
right?
Like Balls would be like, Axel didn't show up, and Axel would be like, dude, Balls is a fucking nut. Like, so they would like kind of blame each other for shit, but they were cool, So. Yeah, dude, I love Axel. He's the man.
Yeah. Pee Wee Anderson.
Man, I haven't heard that name in forever. He was a great ref. He was great at what he did. Where is he now? Do you know?
I've got absolutely no idea. I just remember the name and put it in sort of last minute.
Oh shit! I got the Zoom meeting from the other guy at 11. I booked.
Oh Christ! I'll tell you what. I've got one more minute. I'll ask you one more name. Or is he calling now?
He just sent me a link to the Zoom gimmick.
Okay, then I'll ask you one more name, and then we'll wrap it up. Jamie Dundee.
Jamie Dundee. What the hell was his gimmick? Wolfie D and JC Ice. Jamie Dundee. He's a character. He's cool as shit, and he can work his ass off. I had no idea how great he was, and then I went back and saw him versus my brother at the Elks Lodge in Queens, and he was a hell of a worker and a hell of a personality. And a really cool guy. Yeah.
Right. So you've got another interview now. So I'll thank you very much for your time, Johnny. And thank you once again for watching. I'll plug it one more time. It's No Gimmicks Needed by Johnny Ray, Jonny Candido, and John Cosper. And I encourage you all to buy it. It's a great book. And thank you very much for joining. And I'll catch you again next week.